Thanks for joining us, Dom.
Nice to meet you.
Obviously, you've now been with us for just shy of 6 months, and you're coming to the end of your kickstart trainee contract. Just wondering whether you could tell us a little bit about how you got this job with us.
So how I actually got the job was quite interesting. It was pretty much a 3-day procedure. Whereas I saw the job application, the I had a phone call with you on that same day. Then you told me about the role. It was another role within your company, but the company looked. I really liked the look of the company, so I was happy to accept any role really that I saw. I saw a. I then spoke to Thibaut the day after. And the day after that, which was early 20s, I think it was mid-December in your Christmas break, you were phoning me from maybe Netherlands,
Yep, my parents'
and
place.
I joined you at the company half a month later. It was yeah, it was the first for me in terms of procedure.
I mean, it was an expedited procedure even for our standards, but yeah, I remember Mark
Yeah,
saying, "Oh, I know you're on holiday, but this guy's really good. You need to have a chat with him." I'm like, "Oh, really?" And then yeah, you came across really energetic and really keen to learn and all the right signals that we wanted to see. And so I was like, "Yeah, why not?
I
Why
try and do my
not?"
best.
Yeah.
I was keen to try and get the right people within the time scale before I went off on Christmas. Um, and as we've seen, it worked out really well.
It
What
has.
what I think um, IQM has got a little bit of a different way of working than your average kind of company, which I think you had a sense of to start off with when you spoke to me and you saw our advertisement. I just wonder what you have found good, bad, or indifferent about what we do here at IQM.
So I was actually given a warning before I came in that there were some strong characters in the company, and I did like that. I appreciate it, but that's almost makes it more entertaining. It makes it more fun. And the in terms of company procedures, it is incredibly well run. You've created something that seems innovative and also fun because we do have our conversations where we go off on a tangent and we have fun basically, but at the same time everything else gets done. You rarely have a meeting where you don't come out with the goal that you went in with. That's the idea that's what I've seen from my 6 months here. Where it is functional fun. That's a little snippet.
I like
The
that. Yeah, yeah. Functional fun.
Yeah. The Anything else you want me to go about the running of the company?
What are the processes? Have you got any particular processes that you think, oh, that's my favourite one, or that's really, I don't know, help me work better, or really fun, or I don't know, enable me to connect with the team better. I don't know.
I like the tensions and strips. So there's almost two forms of observations where your tensions are about anything. Your kind of generic, um, any issue really that get dealt with daily. So it's not you go to someone and then it's in the back burners for a month saying, oh yeah, we'll get around to this. It's literally the next day. It gets worked on. It gets prioritized and dealt with. And the strips are quite interesting. I raised a small one, but I'm sure there many have been done in the past. I heard that the workday week was changed because of the strip, and it is the an actual change to your process where anyone in the company can suggest maybe we should do something this way. And then you'll trial it and you'll see if it works, and maybe it becomes a permanent change. And it took me a while to get used to your week starting on Wednesday, but it is useful and has its benefits. You get to kind of think over things at the weekends in the middle of your week. That's one of the biggest advantages I have personally, that you'll be doing something on a Thursday, Friday. It has a few days to settle in the back of your head, and then about Monday, Tuesday, you've got more ideas for. Yeah.
Because you might think that breaking up the sprint might, I mean, maybe it works for some people really well, and for other people not quite so well, but nobody has raised any tensions about it now, and it seems to be working well for the business. So the fact that it works well for the business means that we don't need to change it at the moment.
Exactly. Yeah. Until someone comes up with a new idea and wants to start it on Friday, and
Yeah.
then you question it.
Well,
but it could possibly work.
Yeah. So
yeah.
if there's a good reason, and it suits the people and the business, then that's the whole point. That we are open to that, and we have a process that will enable that to be changed if we feel like if we feel like there's an advantage to the business.
Yeah.
And that's the attention processing was inspired by Holocracy, which is our governance. We base our governance methodology on Holocracy, which has been really interesting as well.
So
Cool.
Yeah, it's a good system. Yep.
just to get an idea, how many tensions and how many strips do you think you've seen, either sort of on average per month or over your time here, just to get an idea of how intense or how frequently this stuff happens?
I think sometimes you go a month without any. So it's generally a couple a month, and that's probably a busy month. Strips are even less frequent because there are genuine business development. You don't often have a kind of new development breakthrough for how you should run your business. That doesn't happen every month, but yeah, a couple of months, I think.
Which is interesting, right? Because from what I've seen in other businesses, if you were to open the floodgates and allow every employee to make comments about anything in the business, how that's ran, you would expect there to be hundreds, maybe, depending on the size of the organization, hundreds of ideas that now you have to process and work through. And sure, if when we initially joined and put this in place, there were more, and they would come up more frequently. I think for the first few months we had a few every week, and there were minor tweaks and stuff. But once you've put it in place, now there's very few adjustments that need to be made, because you're always making these micro adjustments. So I think it actually decreases the change management effort that needs to happen within an organization.
I think it's a good example. I suppose you could call it preventative in a sense. I think it's a good example of a bit more work initially, but then the curve drops over time, and then you're getting much less on average for what we're finding out for a longish period. I mean, we've been doing it for nearly a year and a half. Well, a year and a half now, just over a year and a half now. So yeah, as Thibaut said, we had a fair few to start off with, but then they started to probably exponentially decrease until we're now at this kind of rate that you were describing, Dom.
Because interestingly, this is the kind of stuff that we now in part get paid to help other organizations work through, like what's called internal innovation or entrepreneurship or change management, is basically learning or dealing with the fact that you haven't asked people on what should change in the organization for so long, that now you need to have a consultant or a project manager manage those changes, because you've built up that, not technical debt, but governance debt or organizational debt, if you will. So I'm curious, because we were talking before the start of the meeting, or the start recording this. We were talking about some of the projects that you might tackle in the future, right? And I'm curious, are there things in our way of working that you would want to take with you or apply in other projects that you work in other organizations? And do you feel confident enough in practicing or understanding these ways of working to sort of implement or at least suggest it in another organization?
I definitely feel confident enough to suggest it. Implementing would take some revision, but I'm not too far away. I think your planning and retrospective, they are a staple in any agile environment. Because I really enjoy the kind of planning section where you know exactly what you're going to do, and I will time box it, but you don't, obviously you can do it day by day. The um, Not particularly. I think the tensions and the planning are my main interests of the way you run your business. The way anyone can have a say, anyone can influence the way things are, and if it works, you keep it. It's not predetermined by someone or solely arranged by one person. Because that idea can come from anyone. We all have different experiences. Um, no one probably in this company is having the exact same because they're all doing different things on a day-to-day basis. That sometimes there might be an issue with one thing. If one person has an issue and they deal with it, that means the next person doesn't have to have that same issue, and it's just preventing it early. I think. I guess that's what the main goal is, to iron out these issues before they become major, so you don't open the floodgates and have to hire a project manager to come and fix all the issues you've left building up.
So I'm curious. I'm sort of riffing on this because obviously you've, together with Jonathan, you've taken on the CRM project, which was kind of a beast, which we've tried to do before you guys joined, and it didn't quite work implementing a new CRM. And just for context, the major challenge is sort of the tension between customer service and then the sales or business development side of things, and how we communicate differently with customers and how, or prospective customers, and what the information is that we need in order to do our job correctly. And so we need a single source of truth, but a sales solution doesn't do what the service side needs, and a service solution doesn't do what the sales side need. And we hadn't really found a system that could do both of them. And so we thought, oh, let's give it to Kickstart, see if they can figure it out. And I think you went into it with a lot of enthusiasm and energy. And as we've established, even when you get knocked down, or if an idea of yours gets knocked down, you don't really give up that easily. And it doesn't really diminish your enthusiasm. But is there anything in that experience, over 6 months working on that CRM system, and the feedback that you got from the different stakeholders in the business, that you think went well or that went less well, and that you would tackle differently moving forward? Or what are you going to take into sort of your next adventure? And if you were to work on sort of the implementation of a tool, or the implementation of maybe some changes in the process, because in the end that's also what we agreed on, right? We said, okay, well, instead of trying to find a tool that fits our processes exactly, maybe we need to give a little bit on the process side to adapt to some of the tools that are out there. Is there anything that you would have done differently, or that you would do differently in the future? Sort of, what are your learnings, your experience? Anyway, it's a broad question.
No, I learnt it's the whole process, and every step is valuable. So I think I may have overlooked. Well, I don't think I overlooked it. I just didn't realize how important every single one. So the research at the first stage, the um, it's possibly because we were new to this. It hasn't been done before. But if I was to do this again, there would be meticulous planning of finding every single issue and everything that could pose a problem for you in the future. Because we would go to you and ask you what your kind of issues were, what you were struggling with, and we'd come back with a list, and we'd show me something that fit that list, but there was often something else that we'd missed, or these things wouldn't work for a reason that we maybe didn't see. And every single stage of this process is incredibly valuable. I'd actually never heard of a user test before I came into IQM. I did some in the website, and then we there were this was a slightly lighter one because it was, well, I guess you get different types. You've got the user test to find out what people think about something and how it works, and then you've got more functional user test to find out does it function exactly how you need it to. And I've had experience with both of them now, and again, they need to be planned. They need everything to be worked out so that you don't have to do it again. So yeah, it's the entire process that you've gone through, and every step is important. You can't skip any of it. And at first it was a lot of research, and I didn't know where I was going. But eventually, I started to kind of enjoy it and work out what we needed and come up with these new solutions. Because then we did discover that all these software require a generic or how do I phrase this? A normal way of working? Is there a better way of putting that?
Industry standard.
Industry standard method of way of working. And we kind of work in our own unique way, which doesn't apply. These industry standard tools don't fit our description, so we are trying to mix multiple together, and there's potential with this new one. Seems because it's actually using this software that we use for our project management and emails and putting them all together, and the CRM. It's all just literally combining everything that we have to see if we can make it work smoothly.
Hmm.
I think I've undershot that a bit, but yeah. I've learned definitely how to actually do these processes where you get all the requirements, you then go looking for them, you then create a kind of prototype that works with everything, and then you test it. But again, cover everything so you don't have to do it again. Or you are expecting to do it again, you just don't want to do exactly the same thing for the same results.
Yeah.
You want to do the same, do it again to test further. But yeah.
Moving up with your understanding as you go,
Yeah.
rather than staying in the same place, repeating the same mistakes.
Or going backwards.
Or going backwards.
Yeah.
All right.
Every solution we did, we came out with a new issue to add to the list of kind of requirements. So it technically was going forward. It was just small steps, and if we had done the initial interviews and first, it probably would have been a little bit quicker, I think.
I mean, yes. The other thing that I always talk about when we're doing validation, when we talk about how to do validation, etc., is that people will lie to you even if they don't want to, and getting people to do things makes them much less likely to lie to you than asking them hypotheticals or asking them just general questions. And it was the case with the CRM project as well, where we said, oh, these are my requirements, and then Stuart and Sam went like, we're good with whatever pretty much, which is a massive lie. And then you came up with the first proposal of a solution, and Sam and Stuart went like, oh, this doesn't work, and this doesn't work, and this doesn't work. And then I looked at it and I was like, oh, that doesn't work, and that doesn't work, and that doesn't work. So you now had like 6 new requirements that we hadn't mentioned, even though you'd had those initial discussions with us. And sure, you can be a bit more thorough in your initial interviews, and you can change a little bit how you ask the questions to make sure that you cover more, but you're always going to get new information when you start testing things, right? And so it's this, they're loops, and it's not a straight line that goes up. There's always a bit where you go back and try again, but as long as they don't perfectly overlap, you're going forward. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. So the CRM system is obviously one of the big projects you've been involved in. And also, do you want to talk a little bit about the internal website project that you also worked on?
Yep.
Because I
So
think that had
we
some similarities to the CRM in a sense.
Actually, yeah.
yes. So we did have the user testing um and the flow process of yeah. So you want to build a new website, put simply. That's the your main goal, and then we've been given a load of. It's not more requirements now. It's more to go and come up with ideas and produce an idea for what this website should look like, and we want it to be unique. If not unique, then fairly unique. It needs to be fun. It needs to be memorable and interactive, really. Because we're a company that likes playing games, so if there's some form of gamification in there, then that's not only fun for the user, but represents the company as well. So that's a
I
added
think
bonus
I think
for.
that's one of the things that's important for me is that the website at least express some of the personality of IQM.
Yeah.
And we talked about the games and having fun. And I think you've already mentioned, or maybe that was in our trial one where the audio went wrong. Um, you've also talked. Now I've forgotten what I was going to say.
Good.
You can keep this in if you want.
Early
Mhm.
onset.
Yeah, exactly. Early onset neural degradation on my part.
The website gamification.
Yes, so if the personality of IQM can be represented, that's important with the fun stuff that we do. Yes, that was it. But also the some of the bullshit that we have, and actually, it's not just bullshit to waste time, and it's not people avoiding work. That's absolutely not what it is. Part of the function is just to relax people, and maybe even to get people into a creative state of mind as well. And it tends to be a little bit comedic, and it hopefully bonds the team. But we do still have people facilitating those meetings. So normally it'll be one person because some people can get excited, a little bit excited about that. It could be one person that will bring people back, and then we focus on our objective for that meeting. And as I think you've already said, we do tend to pretty successfully succeed in the objectives of the meetings that we have scheduled. So overall, I think a lot of people will agree that we that kind of bullshit at the start of those meetings is adding to that process. And how do we represent that? I mean, I know this does go on in some other companies, um, but how do we represent that we do that within IQM? That's a question.
We've already got the certificates in the process in
Yep,
the making,
Yeah,
so that's
that's a good point.
one
yep.
of them. The um, but that's only going to be a page or a section of the website. So you could have. I'm not going to kind of try and go into idea generating right now, but yeah, I'm sure there's a way because that works quite well with the gamification
Yep.
because it meshes quite well. It's just having fun at the same time. But yeah, because the audio cut out, it was functional fun was how I described the meetings because you would go off on a bit of a tangent maybe, and you'd have some fun, and then you just as it like you someone just click the fingers, you just suddenly, as if you've just done the shutter on the action clip, you're just back in work mode and fully focused, ready to get on with what you actually came to do. It was yeah, that's another thing about IQM. Maybe that happens in other companies. I haven't quite seen it. But a good balance between work and fun.
I think it does happen in other companies to a certain extent. I think I would suspect that we're a little bit more prone and probably have more bizarre and out there um, kind of conversations than the majority of other companies, at least in my experience of other companies. So you're also doing user testing. Um, and asking questions, and involved a little bit in some design work, I think, with the website, which is an in progress project.
We
So that's
had an
another project.
entire design sprint was fully because we participated in it. It was facilitated by Bon and Josh, and it was a 2-day process, I believe. We were all on a shared whiteboard and all went away with ideas, came back, developed on those ideas, and that was also very informative. What's the learning version of informative? I think just informative. Yeah, I learnt a lot from that, and they are actually quite fun because you can kind of collaborate as a group and find a solution. Basically, we all came up with ideas. They were all anonymous. We all voted on the best parts of which ones, and we came up with a solution that took the best of everything.
And that,
And
that design sprint was at least inspired by kind of design thinking methodology,
yeah,
wasn't it?
Hmm.
In quite a visual sense, using online whiteboards. Oh, here we go. Got a little
That
friend there.
is
Can you see
interesting.
that? Yeah.
that's a big one.
He's washing his shit.
He's managed to land perfectly on
Yeah.
there. You may have seen me earlier on in the day kind of
Yeah.
doing this because I seem to have a fly friend.
I mean, this is a friend,
Yeah, I was just
an
gonna say he's
actual
put your
friend.
Okay.
camera
I'm not going
perfectly in
to,
too.
I think he deserves some credit for
Screen
landing
time.
exactly there. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
he's getting ready to
Yeah.
go.
He's
Yeah.
cleaning
Oh,
his wings or something.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. There we
there we
hey!
go.
go.
There we go.
Website. So we were coming up with ideas. We then had a full-on design sprint for more ideas, and we started building a prototype. And I think Tibo, you had a friend who just whipped up this thing in a day, and we started user testing that with everyone. And again, that was my first introduction to user testing, where you would fully get their ideas and what they think about something. Whereas with the CRM, it was, does it function exactly how you need it to be? And then you had I think maybe it was Stuart that had the um, breakthrough of just changing it completely, just coming up with a new idea of the 3 tiers of representing the company as what the
That
company
was
does.
us.
That was
That was
that
you
not?
and me. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I thought you came to me with an idea, and
Well,
then we
Stuart triggered it by saying, "Oh, the biggest change we've made in the world is how we run this company," and that kind
yeah
of triggered in me. Oh, well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and actually, that's what we do, or in part, that's what we do. And so I had sort of a rough idea, and then we workshopped or brainstormed it out, and came up
yeah
with the robot
the robots.
surgeon thing.
Maybe a robot welder. That's still
Welder,
in
yeah.
that's still in construction.
Mm.
Maybe. But yeah, and then that's given you a platform to start your next wave of ideas off, and maybe a design sprint, maybe I don't know, however you're gonna go through there. But that actually brought quite a good visualization of the company because that applies to also with the venture sprint and the overall theme of everything you want. The website wanted a similar theme. Yeah, everything seems to link together, and which is I think that's a holocratic feature where everyone has a say in everything. Everyone can help with whatever they can help with.
So
There's
yes, to a certain extent, and that's also something in design thinking, is that everybody gets to have an opinion about something, but there is a decider. There is someone who has the decision power,
yeah,
and that was going to be my sort of question. Is the website was a much more participative approach than the CRM project, which I mean, I don't know if it made us start over more often, because actually the CRM we've also gone in circles a little bit. But I definitely, from my perspective, the website definitely sort of made progress after getting input from the group, but then a smaller group of people or one or two individuals making decisions on how to move forward. Because it's not consensus, right? Neither holocracy nor design
No.
thinking are a consensus driven system. There is a very clear decision power that is with one or two or three individuals, depending on the domains, but you get input from everyone.
yeah. I think I was there was a book that I think I showed it to you when I was um, trialing, deciding which one I was going to go through, and they actually had their own version of design sprints. So I think they can be done in multiple ways. There's way you can any way of getting these inputs, and it was a cool little procedure where everyone would go off on their own for 5 minutes, come up with an idea, they come back, grow off into pairs, and they kind of create the best get the best of two solutions, and then you come back in their pairs with one between them. They then go off into fours and come back with one between. Kind of combine those two again to come back, and then by then your group's probably quite small, so you've then got just a couple of ideas to get through. And these processes are just really interesting. They you can get a lot out of them within a fairly short amount of time, and you need everyone that could have an impact or an influence on it participating. They they want the kind of developers designing, the designers well, that's maybe more difficult, but the
I think for me
when you
that what you're touching on there, sorry to interrupt, Dom, is I think that also links with diversity and inclusion because you can have a certain small group of people always deciding on how something is made, but if you are having other groups, whether they have different roles or different jobs, um, and classically people who are diverse in different ways um, tend to have different types of roles because they tend to think in a different way, which suits them more to other roles. And when you bring those people together, sometimes with the kind of process you're describing, you're gonna you're gonna get these shifts, and people are going to see things from different perspectives. So you've still got this decider, as Thibaut said, this person who potentially is the person that has to deliver this project, but they are getting, I think, that added value in these actually time limited processes, which I think is important to time limit some of these creative bits, to have these different mechanisms to shift the way you see things, and then to time limit that. You get that output, and then that decider has a range of these different creative outputs that they can draw from, probably to then create the next prototype that would be better than if they could create it themselves or in a small group that's less diverse.
It's one of those things that John Cleese talks about in his creativity stuff as well, right? It's time
Yeah,
and time. It's like you need to make it condensed so that you stimulate the creativity and the pressure, but then afterwards you need to give yourself time to digest all the stuff that you came up with and sort of slowly and organically in the background come up with new ideas and then have sort of a more condensed thing again, etc. I don't remember. He had an acronym, right? For I
I
don't.
can't remember it.
Yeah.
I watched it a year or so ago when we
Yeah.
both looked
Same.
at it,
Yeah.
but I think what was interesting because when we first joined the company, Thibaut, I think we were trying to find that balance because
Mm.
I think both of us like to include everybody in
Mm.
things, but if you include everybody, sometimes some of those people really potentially don't understand what the overall vision is because they don't have all that information. And then some people really struggle with certain elements of it, so they're maybe not taking so much part, so you might be wasting their time. But it's for me, it's getting to that balance of getting those ideas, but also making the process quick enough and getting the right kind of deciders that make final decisions and have accountability for moving something forward. So I think there's a dynamic balance there, balancing act there, because if people are always making decisions on everything and no one gets to make any decisions or have any input, that's not good. If everybody has an input all
Yeah.
the time, that's going to be chaos. That is going to be chaos. So for me, it's that balancing act in between. And I think the use of a few different tools or methodologies also helps you um, not get caught in a rut, I think, and have some of those different perspectives. So Dom, we talked about the CRM, we've talked about the website. I think broadly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, there's two other kind of main areas you've been working on. Um, one being the sales,
Yep.
which you've now had, as we were celebrating this morning, you've now had some significant breakthroughs on
Yep.
in a really tough process. So maybe you'll talk a little bit about that in a second. And then the other thing is the video editing.
Oh yeah.
So we didn't say it at the start. Yep.
So I just want to keep us aware of the fact that we've already been talking for half an hour. So talking about 2 more subjects, that's going to be a big no-no. We're more going to sort of wrap up now. So if you
Yep.
just want to give us like a 2-minute rundown of those other
A
things,
bullet
Don,
point of those other things.
that's good. But yeah.
I can go over them quickly. So I came brand new to sales. I had no idea how it worked. I think during my interview with Tibo at the beginning, I asked for some topics that I could learn up before I actually came here, and that's helped a little bit. But it's I don't think I actually started messaging people until 2 or 3 months in. It was I
Yeah.
think we were doing the websites before that. It took a little bit of time. I think the initial plan was to get me on the calls, but that has gotten slowly. But yeah, so I was brand new to this. I had to pick it up, and there are some potential leads within a few months, which seems quite good. They obviously need to happen first before I can get too happy about it, but that was a learning process where I had to learn, because my initial messages weren't great. There was nothing compelling about them. They were too forced. They were too um, obvious. What I find about sales is that it's you both of you know what you're trying to do, but you need to seem like you don't, seem like you're not. That's the way I've seen it. But then if you genuinely approach it in a friendly way, as in a non-business way, you can get a conversation that might lead to something and might not. You don't fully know yet, but it's about you then build the relationships. Maybe that person knows someone, maybe that one sees someone in 5 years' time that suddenly might need something that you spoke to them about. And that's the way that I've learnt how to do, or how to reach out to people at IQM. Video editing. So I'm going to be editing this video here tomorrow, and it's something, again, I was brand new to. I'd played around it in the past, but I didn't know what I was doing, and these videos well, it's not exactly a kind of motion picture film, but it's editing it is okay. It's the finding the clips that's the time consuming. So I'll go through it multiple times, and I'll place markers down of the most interesting bits, and then sometimes I'll combine them together. So if I've said something at the beginning and then I've said something at the end that might link to it, we'll kind of go and pick them both out and put them together. But that tends to happen less often because you do follow a train of thought. You kind of the conversation has its flow. But yeah, that's also been something I've learnt. I started probably about halfway through. Was it a bit earlier? I actually don't know. But yeah.
Maybe a bit before halfway. I mean, what's interesting to me, I mean, we call it video editing, and you're cutting things up, but actually you're also making the choices, and that's the editor bit. You are making choices about what is being compiled from our conversations, and we have very little, if any, input on what you're putting together. So it's you have quite a responsibility there in a sense to cut this up and present what is IQM.
These are going out on YouTube without you having. We haven't even seen them. There could be anything in there.
Well, theoretically, you could choose individual words and make us say certain things, which would
don't give them any ideas now, Mark.